Again, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this community update call. I think this is our 8th week in which we have been getting everybody together to just give an update on a very, very dynamic situation that keeps evolving and with time. Very reluctant to make categorical statements because by the time I'm done with them, things have changed. So I'm saying this and looking out to Blake and Ariel to just make sure that we have updated information. But the whole idea of this, having this ongoing conversations with the community was really to do what we are all trying to accomplish, work together as a community to welcome new arrivals, in this case, the Afghans, but even to a larger extent, it goes beyond that because we're doing this for the St. Louis community, a community that we all want to see become more welcoming and more inclusive. And in the context of that, we felt that having these weekly meetings would enable us to try to put everybody on the same page. And these conversations have evolved over time from the very beginning when it was a lot of information that we had to process in understanding what the arrival of the Afghans was going to look like in itself, to working together with community partners to address some of the challenges in advance of those arrivals. And then we had this period where it almost seemed like nothing was happening, but there was a lot happening behind the scenes. I think with your help, with everybody's help here, we seem to be more prepared now as a community. And I'm not saying this just as the International Institute, as a community, to welcome our new neighbors to this community. But as we speak at the moment, we've been preparing for this, and I think that as we speak, and in the update that's going to be provided, we're beginning to see that wave of arrivals coming into St. Louis now. It almost seems like the processing work that had to be done on the basis has been taken care of, and now we're beginning to see that flow, which means that some of the challenges that we had predicted, we're dealing with those right now, and there may be things that we have to do together as a community to adjust. We evolved these conversations to really trying to take everybody through the resettlement process so that we could understand what it is. We focused on resettlement, we covered the education, we covered health and mental health. And today we're really going to be highlighting what happens to workforce, getting these people to join the workforce and get the dignity of being productive in our community as well. And that's what we're going to highlight today. But first, as always, our agenda is going to begin with a weekly update. After the weekly update, then we're going to go into talking about how we're preparing the workforce. What's the status quo? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities that we're facing there? And then we're obviously going to have question and answers at the end just so that we get an open forum and we can take any questions that anybody has. Before I turn it over to Blake, let me just say I want to thank everybody on this, all the community partners that have really come out, and every single day we see new opportunities in our collaboration, and I just want to highlight that and thank you all for the many, many, many things that you're doing to support this community effort. With that, Blake, I'll turn this over to you for the weekly update.
Thank you. So today, with today's update, we really want to focus on the top line news, which is the fact that we are now seeing arrivals in mass. Our national partner agency, USCRI, notified us that they were authorizing cases for travel en masse, which is not a normal practice, but they have authorized the first 300 arrivals. to come through St. Louis. And this week we will welcome, as of today, we will welcome 54 individuals today. And so as a reminder, that is about 1/3 of the total number of arrivals that we had all of last year coming to us in 1 week. While we continue to have job openings available, we still have not staffed up to the level that we need in order to be able to properly address the challenges and help folks address the challenges that they face upon arrival. But we are here nonetheless. This 54 arrivals is what we're being told we can expect through the end of the calendar year. About between 50 and 60 arrivals a week. We do know that the cases that are coming to us right now do have significant health barriers. Several of them do. These are kind of fitting the profile that we've talked about before in terms of several large cases, families of 8 and 9, in addition to some smaller cases at this point, and almost all Afghan parolee and not arriving as SIVs. Though, that sort of demographic breakdown in terms of status or size or need could change as we kind of move through this. That is the folks that we see amongst this set of 54 arrivals for this week. We are, and I mentioned that, this is what we have for now because I think Ariel authorized some cases or was notified about travel for some cases on Saturday that ended up arriving on Monday, and then once again notified arrivals on Monday that were arriving later that day. So we are getting, 2 days, 6 hours notice for these arrivals. The good news is that the federal government has authorized fee waivers for the employment authorization document that these new arrivals will need to complete, many of whom will have completed this application for employment authorization at the bases prior to arrival, but we do know that some that have made their way here have not had that completed for them. Waiving of that fee is fantastic. It's generally about a $400 fee that is now no longer applicable to these folks who are seeking employment, which is great to hear. However, we are still seeing delays in the issuance of employment authorization documents. And I think Chelsea will talk a little bit more about that as we get into our discussion on workforce. Additionally, our community support program is off and running. We had our initial orientation on Friday of last week, and we had about 40 attendees on that, representing 8 different groups that have come together to provide support for arriving families. And these folks who've gone through the orientation are now being matched to families to provide support and critical support now that we are seeing this flood of arrivals begin. If you or your organization is interested in connecting as a community support group, then we do have a second orientation that we're scheduling for December. And our plan at this point is to have offer orientation for community groups once a month. Again, this is an opportunity to connect directly with a family where we have families or groups connected to specific families. We will invite them to come receive folks at the airport and begin building that relationship from there through this program. And I believe I provided it before, we can provide it in the notes here afterwards, but if you're interested in learning more about the program, you can reach Wafa Osman here at the Institute to learn a little bit more. And the third section of the update here is regarding housing. Of course, with 54 arriving, we are rapidly going through the stock of housing that we had accrued and secured prior to this week. And so we're very much in need of more housing options. And our focus here is not on temporary housing. We have received many great connections and partnerships to satisfy temporary housing challenges. But at this point, we are seeking more permanent housing options, so rentals and long-term stays. In order to help get folks into apartments, again, with such short notice, we are in need of more volunteers that can help with our housing setups. We do, again, with 6 hours notice for housing setups, it means that we're generally operating sort of behind on our timeline. So we know that Oasis very generously has entered into an MOU agreement with the Institute to help with housing setups. However, we will need more connections with organizations that can commit to regularly scheduled times to assist with housing setups in light of the very little notice that we're getting ahead of arrivals. I can also mention that there is new assistance available for incoming Afghan parolees through the APA Refugee Support Services Program. This is a program that was newly launched to provide, and I mentioned this in our last meeting, to provide continued support beyond that initial resettlement period to APA individuals, and this includes housing support. And they were actually earmarking 52% of the funds to be allocated to housing support. And one thing that we are trying to work on right now is this balance between individual cash assistance to help folks pay for rent, but also building out supportive housing services through other providers that might be able to keep folks in housing. This is generally housing support that isn't for brand new arrivals. We are able to pay for rent up to 4 months, and even depending on program enrollments, up to 6 months for newly arrived individuals. So this is really about how do we support housing beyond that period if needed. So these funds can go for any variety of purposes, essentially anything that does not involve significant changes to the blueprint of a house, right? So we can't use these funds to help take an apartment from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom, as that would kind of change the footprint. These are federal funds that cannot be used in that way. However, additional supports for landlords to help fumigate apartments, or to help clean apartments, or provide fresh coats of paint to apartments would be usable with these funds. But we are seeking MOUs with organizations who can help us coordinate and connect with landlords and secure these longer-term housing opportunities and supportive services for folks who are already in solid housing conditions as well. Overall, there's a large need for volunteers to be connected to services at the agency. As I understand that we're still building out our process for connecting volunteers and doing their background checks. But the call is still out there. You're going to be updating our website with additional volunteer opportunities, and appreciate any organization that sees a way to get connected. We would love to figure out how we might be able to sign an MOU to get your organizations connected and providing direct service to incoming folks. And so with that, I will pause before we transition over to hearing about workforce.
Yeah, thank you very much, Blake, for that update, with actionable items being the orientation that's coming up in December for community support. Obviously, need for more available housing units, mindful of the numbers that are coming at us, but also really highlighting the need for volunteers. And I know that volunteers for things like housing setup and lots of other things that would follow. I think that listing is going to be on our website shortly. But I would say that we are really open to that in terms of opportunities for collaboration. And then, of course, the collaboration towards things that we can do to support housing for the arrival. So those are some actionable items. I'll just tell everybody to just hold your questions if you do have any, so that we go through the workforce conversation, and then we'll come back to all questions. Hopefully we have time to answer those questions. But if you are also asked that we'll put in the chat people to contact, say, for questions of volunteers, housing, as well as the orientation, so that people can just have direct contacts to the staff on the team of the International Institute. With that, I will turn this over to our Director of Workforce Solutions, Chelsea Sheridan. Yes, Chelsea, please.
Thank you, Ray. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another week of the President's Recap. I am here today to give you an overview of the Workforce Solutions team and services here at the International Institute. And so we'll just begin. So the International Institute's Department, Workforce Solutions Department, is really here to support our foreign-born clients with both initial and long-term engagement with the U.S. workforce. While for many, especially our newcomers, the initial goal is obtaining any employment to ensure economic self-sufficiency, our team's work really doesn't stop there. We support individuals through multiple positions and their professional integration and advancement within the workforce. Our ultimate goal, of course, is career growth and positions to meet the backgrounds and skills of each job seeker in their professional roles. And so how we do this is multifaceted and multi-pronged, but I'll try to keep it as simple as possible today to go through. So really briefly, our services are multifaceted, as I mentioned, both services to clients and services to employers or the greater community, if you'd like to think about it that way. Our services to clients include preparation for working in the U.S. We offer job readiness class and other soft skills practice, such as interview practice, and then support referral, a direct targeted referral to job placement services. As mentioned previously, we also offer career advancement services where a longer term approach to each individual's career plans are created and supported through our services. We also include assistance with retaining employment, answering questions, helping folks navigate challenges while on the job, and understanding how to navigate the system, right? The US workforce system and all that entails. For employers, our team provides a high quality targeted referrals of candidates to match specific positions and continues to stay connected with our partner employers to support pre and post hire support for the candidate and for the employer. So we really take a partnership approach with our employer partners and are really there to kind of meet the needs and make that connection as well. So rather than just sending anyone to any old job, the Workforce Solutions team really takes an individualized approach and try to meet the candidates where they are and with what they need. So family barriers such as childcare, transportation, shift times, what time they begin and end, are all taken into account along with the skills and of course the preference of our job seekers when trying to match for a position. Sometimes folks don't even know what those barriers are, right, to entering into a position. So we really go through each facet of the role beyond just the duties and the job itself, but to ensure that those barriers are addressed and met, or that position isn't a viable option for that person. We then support the individual through the application or resume creation process. We also coordinate interviews with the employers and either provide transportation or ensure individuals know how to get to the interview. And then once they are selected, or if they are selected, we do offer post-hire support, such as those lovely forms we all fill out when we first start a job, like the W-4 and the Form I-9, which are, of course, extremely confusing, especially for our newest arrivals. We are fortunate that we have multiple job placement programs within our department that allow us to serve not only these newest arrivals the moment they arrive, but really refugees and SIVs, other Office of Refugee Resettlement groups up to 5 years in the United States. And then of course, other programs that allow us to serve refugees past 5 years, as well as any work authorized immigrants. So our department really serves folks across a broad swath of not only backgrounds and experiences, but really time in the US and engagement with the US workforce system. So as mentioned before, we want to meet the employability needs of clients, not only getting them connected to jobs, but helping them to overcome barriers, identify challenges, and secure connections to needs such as education, training, supportive case management services. And then also, of course, we do track retention and follow up and check in with individuals to kind of see how a job is going once they've begun. Our career advancement services support the entry or the re-entry of an individual into a particular career field in the US. And again, this takes a longer term approach, right? For One such example is, foreign trained professionals who have advanced degrees and advanced experience from their home country or another country, seeking to enter into a similar or related role here in the United States, and all that that entails in terms of degree evaluation, licensure, understanding of the job market, networking, connections, and all the facets of entering into a professional role here in St. Louis. So it really is about an individualized approach and meeting folks where they're at along their resettlement process into the United States. So a little bit more about the referral process is that we do, to connect individuals to specific positions, we gather that information via a job order form. And I will speak a little bit more on that later, but really this helps us to gather the relevant information from an employer about a specific position. It's a bit more detailed than a standard job description because we really need to know exact shift times, if something's on the bus line, what uniforms are required, what the working conditions are, that we would take then to screen individuals for that specific role. So if somebody can't get there or doesn't have the childcare met for that time to that position, that's not going to be a viable option. So we're really trying to waste as little time of the individual clients and the employers as possible by doing this pre-screening process. We also, again, then would, if we find it to be a good fit, both the client and the job developer find it to be a good fit, then we would then assist with the next steps for referral, and includes application and resume. Again, referring for consideration through interview, supporting the interview process, not only interview practice, but supporting individuals with interview outfits sometimes if needed, really to kind of help in whatever is needed across that point. And then of course, assisting with any related paperwork or even drug screenings or background checks that might be required prior to somebody actually starting a job. So next, so beyond the differences, individuals that come to us with an education and professional experience, as I've kind of alluded to, we see everybody from individuals with advanced degrees and years of professional experience to individuals that have spent many, many years in a refugee camp and never been allowed to have formal work experience due to their status as a refugee or their situation in terms of having to flee their home country. So, the broad folks that we serve are very broad in many facets, but beyond that, Workforce Solutions team serves individuals with vast immigration statuses. This includes refugees, asylees, work authorized immigrants, victims of trafficking, parolees, and other work authorization statuses. Understanding work authorization for each group and the appropriate documents that individuals can present is something our team must keep on hand and keep abreast of at all times in order to support the client and the employer's understanding of that work authorization. So for simplicity's sake today, we'll focus on the most recent immigration statuses that we are currently serving, including the Afghan arrivals, and explain a little bit more about their work eligibility. So as you know, individuals from Afghanistan have been arriving with many different statuses. We've traditionally, prior to this fall, have seen most Afghans arriving to St. Louis as refugees and special immigrant visa holders. Both refugees and special immigrant visa holders are work authorized immediately upon arrival, so the moment they land, and are either immediately permanent residents or / green card holders, or as in the case of the SIV, or after a year, such as the case of the refugee, are able to become a permanent resident. We don't often send these individuals, despite their work authorization, immediately to work the next day after arrival. We still want to do some employment preparation, but they really have no waiting period in terms of being able to be work authorized. So for the new statuses of individuals that we're serving, their work eligibility and their authorization looks a bit differently. Parolees, both Afghan humanitarian parolees and SQ or SI parolees, are not immediately conferred employment authorization upon arrival or upon conferment of parolee status, but they must apply for it. And unlike refugees or SIVs, cannot work until they actually receive their employment authorization document, often called an EAD card. Their work authorization would also expire without an adjustment of status after 2 years as well. So many of you know, we've mentioned in previous sessions that for these parolees, it's a 2-year period, and then they would need to apply for asylum or another adjustment of status, depending on what happens in Congress. So their work authorization is really tied to that status as a parolee as well, and the time frame that entails. Some other differences in some of the newer statuses is the initial arrival documentation does not allow work authorization. So in instances of refugees, their travel documentation does confer work authorization or can be used for work authorization representation purposes. But for parolee individuals, they really have to really wait for their physical employment authorization card to arrive to have that work authorization status. And so this is a change, and we must be really careful in terms of when we're serving individuals to understand their status and the process for that. So that's a bit about the newest folks that we're serving. For what's the realities of this, though? What does this really mean? So for the Afghan humanitarian parolees, we are seeing that the EAD cards are not coming immediately or very quickly at all. We've heard from our national partner at USCRI that those who have applied for their work authorization on base may receive their cards more expeditiously than those who have applied off base or when they arrive to St. Louis. We're still waiting to see data on this more long-term to see if that isn't true. In fact, as of today, there may be, I know of 1 to 2 cases that have received their employment authorization cards and many, 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 many more that are still waiting. But as we start to track or to see how this arrived, that will also help us to understand the approximate time frame for our newer folks to engage with their employment authorization cards. We are also seeing that Social Security cards are extremely delayed and restricted for all of our arrivals. And so while refugees in particular can work prior to receiving their unrestricted Social Security card, parolees do have a restricted Social Security card and again must have their employment authorization document before they can begin working, even if they've received their Social Security card before that. So employers, as well as many of us, have to be educated on this process and how to navigate hiring folks with this different documentation, because there's a lot of materials and information that's out there for working with refugees and some of these statuses that have been around a lot longer. But for some of these newer statuses, this is something we have to really kind of be teaching employers as we're working with them. So now let's look at what's really going on within the Workforce Solutions team at this time. So we'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we are very fortunate to continue to see much interest in hiring our candidates. Our team has always maintained a robust employer partner pool, usually approximately around 100 employers each year that we would partner with. But due to a variety of factors, this year we've already seen more employers connecting than usual. Of course, the low unemployment rates and smaller labor force participation means that we are seeing employers desperate for employees. While the media has graciously highlighted the fact that arrivals in St. Louis will be growing and much larger in the coming year, we do know that 1,500 arrivals doesn't mean that there's 1,500 workers, right? In fact, this could be 750 adults or even less. And then of those, perhaps some that are not able to go to work right away or may face other challenges to being able to work. So this is great. It means that we'll be seeing a lot more folks, but it's not 1,500 individuals, all arriving and ready to work at this time, which is something that we are trying to communicate and share within the community. We're also considering the barriers, not only such as in the delay of the work authorization card, but also transportation. As I mentioned previously, childcare and other challenges are typically taken into consideration, but so is transportation. For individuals that are newly arriving, they're not arriving with cars, they're not arriving with driver's licenses, they must rely on public transportation or other ways to get to their jobs. And so having employers that have transportation opportunities or are on a public transportation line is really vital in understanding, if folks are going to be able to get connected there and what that looks like for them. Also where they're living, if they can access public transportation to even go to a job. We are also ensuring that our job readiness curriculum and preparation. So say, as Blake mentioned, we have 54 folks arriving this week. That's wonderful. And even if they were refugees that could work right away, we would, again, want to do some employment preparation through our job readiness curriculum and other employment preparation prior to even beginning a job search process for these folks. So my main refrain, I will say, is that our candidate remains small. In fact, it's the smallest in my 7 years here at the Institute, but it will grow. And we're looking for that pool to grow. And we are, preparing for that as well. So what do employers need to know? What have I been, again, parroting every to our employer partners that are connecting out? Our job development team will be growing, but during this period of transition within my team, I am connecting with employers that are interested through a weekly informational meeting or by connecting via email. So our messaging remains that while our candidate pool remains small at this time, we know that it will grow to a more robust normal in the coming weeks and certainly the coming months. While all the positions are welcomed for review, we remain committed to connecting our candidates to positions that best match their skills, their interests, and economic needs. This means that minimum wage roles are generally not considered. That's not something we really want to connect folks to. We want to find full-time benefited positions that offer a more competitive wage for these individuals to really get some firm footing and enter in the workforce here in the U.S. We also must take into account transportation, as I mentioned, and understanding the needs of new arrivals. Our targeted referral process, in which we make sure individuals are connected to positions that meet their needs and abilities, include shift time and etc. So we really encourage employers to fill out our job order form as completely and as detailed as possible. We also let employers know that we are not publicly posting these things. We really are keeping them between our team, the individual we're screening, and the employer, so that we encourage them to share as much information as possible. If a referral is, and so once the job order is submitted to us online, our team then can review it. And of course, if there is a referral possible or a candidate to match at this time, we will be more than happy to connect them. But what we're really letting individual employers know is we will keep this on file and would encourage them to connect again in the future. I'm generally saying 3 months time would be a great time to connect if we haven't already provided a referral or connected during that period. We know that the next year will certainly look differently than the last few years and are getting prepared to meet it. And we know that the pool again will be larger. It's larger, but not overflowing pool. It'll just be a more robust pool, but it will be very diverse, of course, right? Not every individual, even though they're a newcomer, is going to need to go for the same type of role or have the same skills, needs, or abilities. So we really are trying to find as diverse opportunities for our candidates as possible, while also being mindful of the needs of employers and trying to make sure that we make those connections as quickly and as succinctly as possible. But with a very small candidate pool, it's very difficult at this time. So with that, I hope I kept to my time limit, all right? I am happy to answer any additional questions or elaborate on anything that was talked about here today. But really, and thank you all for your time and for attending these meetings with our team.
Thank you very much, Chelsea, for that very detailed but really effective communication of the process. And this is really important. We have tried to take everybody and you all along with us on the process on what happens when we get these arrivals and the detailed work that we do behind the scenes, so that everybody can see and understand where the opportunities are for support or for collaboration in that regard. I just, you brought up the question of transportation, and we, one of the conversations that we've been having is we need volunteers to help us with bus, just helping our new arrivals understand how to use the bus service, which for people who are just coming here is really something that's very complex, since they've not had they probably don't have the similar systems in Afghanistan. They don't, not probably. So that's an opportunity. But I also know that Jessica from us Welcome Neighbors had reached out to us yesterday talking about the collaboration with Uber and Lyft and the possibility of providing cards that would enable these new arrivals be able to come for appointments at the International Institute for the assessments, and maybe to some extent help them with going to job interviews and things like that as needed. But that's an opportunity for collaboration, and I just wanted to highlight that and say thank you for that, Jessica and her team. Any questions for us? We have enough time to take questions. These questions could be on workforce solution. It could be on the arrivals that, the weekly update that Blake shared with you all. I want to make sure that I look at the chat to see if there. Yes, there is a question from Madeleine, which says, will volunteers with housing setup need background checks? And how long does the application process last? Blake, do you want to take this or should I? Okay, I see.
Well, I'll let Kelly answer a little bit about the length of time, because right now we're not requiring background checks for these positions that do not have direct contact with clients. So housing setups, I think we can move fairly quickly, but I kind of want to let Kelly fill in the gaps on that answer.
Okay, Kelly.
Good day. So as Blake mentioned, yes, if clients aren't, if volunteers are not having client interaction, we'd not require a background check. So the application process, we have just this weekend been able to put the application online. So that's our big news with that. We're hoping that having the online application will enable us to speed up our process. Carrie is also on the call, so she might be able to tell us what we're going from. She's the one who actually processes all of those.
Yeah. Can I have a follow-up conversation on this? This is coming from Madeleine with Welcome Neighbors. I think this is the opportunity this is some opportunities for us as a community to get creative, right? And I think that we will be willing, Madeleine, to just work with you directly. If you have a group of volunteers, we will work with you as early as possible, as early as you can have that group ready. We will work with you to have some kind of quick orientation. We need the help. So don't worry about the time. Reach out to Kelly. We'll set this up as soon as we can.
Okay, super.
Okay.
I do want to add, this is we will fast track volunteers who will not have direct client contact. So office support, organization in the donations room. We'll only fast track volunteers that have no direct client contact.
Correct.
Okay.
Any, I hope I didn't miss any other question in the, any other questions with reference to, and I think we have, so any questions or further questions with reference to the community support orientation, we can reach out to WAFA. Other questions with volunteers, like Ariel just said, and I just said, we are going to be fast tracking those. We want to get, this is game time, and we will be open to any opportunities that come up for that. But of course, the background checks will go for those that are needed. But for the other things, we'll get those done as soon as we can.
Can I ask real quick, for the housing setup, I'm looking at would high school groups be appropriate? I know for the direct contact, it says be at least 18 years of age. For housing setup, would it be possible to mobilize some of the high school groups? Some of them had reached out previously, but hadn't been able to plug in yet. So I think they'd be happy to re-engage, but the population would be 14 to 18. So would they be able to do the housing?
You know, if they're able to do the housing during daytime, then yes. As long as there's at least one adult with them, I don't think it'll be an issue. Most of our housing right now, at least for this week, is either in the afternoon that we're setting up apartments or housing units. We don't have anything after typically 5 o'clock for this week, at least.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other Yeah, Chelsea, I see you indicating.
Sure. I was just going to say, I know that, employment's not typically something folks think about when we talk about this initial surge, this initial arrivals, but this is something we serve individuals for a very long period past this initial arrival settlement. So we're trying to get prepared and set up. And so I would just implore all of you to help with the communication. If there are employers, or if you know of folks that are looking to get engaged, the best way to really connect with us is via our website, istl.org/workforce-solutions. We'll take you to our page where folks can engage with that job order form that I mentioned there. There's information on the page as well about our services. And then after somebody submits that job order form, they are receiving an email with an invite to that weekly meeting that I talked about in terms of like kind of updating folks on our process and where we're at with the with candidates and things. Thank you, Armina, for sharing that. But that really is the quickest way. If they send us an email or give us a call, it's fine. But the most expeditious way to get connected is really via that website link. So just encourage anybody that has family members, friends, anybody else that's like, oh, I want to hire somebody, to just engage with that process. So. And also to encourage folks to continue to send folks to our job application, our job postings for the International Institute as well, which my team is one of those that is hiring for.
Quick question. This is Mike at Tower Girl. If I could get a couple retired people together for tomorrow and Friday, who should I contact for the housing setup?
If you have volunteers for this Friday, did you say this Friday?
Yes.
The best person to reach would be Wafa Osman, and you can usually get her through email. I would suggest sending an email to her on Thursday, letting her know what time you're able to help out on Friday, and then she can let you know what arrangements are being done.
Yeah, Wafa's email is in the chat, so if you can pick that up there as well.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you know, shoot, I don't have Wafa's phone extension. She does answer her voicemail pretty religiously. So if you call the Institute's main phone number, 314-773-9090, and just ask the operator to forward you to Wafa Osman, you can leave her a message also.
Thank you very much.
And her extension is 182. I put that in the chat.
Oh, do you think it's at the front door?
Well, I didn't see anybody at the back, but I don't see anybody at the front, so maybe I missed it at the back. I'll go.
Okay.
So let me ask a quick question.
Yeah. Yes, Micah.
Set up. Do you see retirees? You think it's something they could handle?
I do. It depends on each individual person. I will tell you that sometimes it can get very, very physical, but if you tell us what your limits are, after you've carried a mattress up flights of stairs 5 times in a day, you might say, that's my limit. I'm not going to do any more, and we'll respect that. But we have things where you could actually gather the material and put it on the floor. And then another group would put it in the van, and then maybe another group would take it to the housing unit. So there's varying degrees of physicality that's involved.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you guys know, this is Fred, that our military volunteers have been eager for this phase as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I may be able to get our military volunteer groups to step up. I know I've actually had Air Force folks reaching out to me asking when they can help families. So I'm certainly ready to stand by, ready to go.
Great, thank you. As a military person myself, I support that completely.
Thank you very much, Fred. We'll be looking forward. We'll reach out to you and of course to Peter. Your support has always been really appreciated and priceless. Any other questions? Anything that we left out, Blake, that we need to communicate, Kelly?
I think that we do have our programs listing document. People are asking about who points of contact are for certain programs, et cetera, et cetera. We can re-release that, but I would caution we are going to be providing a newly updated programs listing document with our new federal programs that started as of October 1st. And that full listing will be available over the next several weeks. So I would just say, if you're confused about who you might need to reach out to, please reach out to any of us here. We provided our contact information. We can get you connected. But our hope would be over the next week or two that we would have a new document that we could be able to share with updated contact information by program.
Thank you. And post this this call, we're going to just send some bullet point, contact information so that you can follow up on this conversation easily. I think that will be very helpful. And as things evolve, if there are opportunities, I'm hoping that we can communicate with this group in between now and next week, weekly update. If there's a call that comes up, I'm just putting you all on notice that I hope you don't mind us reaching out to say there's really need for us in this area. We'll just send it out to the group, and then please, I know you all will step up as you have been doing in the past. So if there are no more questions, then I just want to thank you all for doing this. We're in this together. We're in the middle of it now, and I hope that we come through it as a community, and not just the International Institute, but as a community. And I really appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you very much for being here today.